rock stars, roadies, or groupies were harmed in the making of this broadcast. Giving it to you straight and no chaser. This is On the Rocks with Jamie Wilson. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to On the Rocks. I'm Jamie Wilson. We got a great show for you guys tonight. It's Offshore Music's 5th year anniversary this year. And so it's going to be great. It's going to be a great time hanging out with the people behind Offshore Music as we are going to be celebrating our vinyl night tonight. So it's going to be all about vinyl. And maybe we can ask a few questions on how, Offshore Music happened and how it's going to keep on happening for the years to come. But before we get to that, we've got a few announcements. Of course, from Offshore Music, Enamori just released her single, Oh Bleeding Hearts, and it's available on all streaming platforms. It's a kick-ass track, guys, and it's a teaser for her new album that's going to be coming out. She'll be releasing a lyric video on Friday, so stay tuned to her YouTube channel for the premiere, and we're also going to be shooting a few music videos for her, so stay tuned for that. Also, Anak ng Bayan by Solo is still out there and kicking ass, and so is Alive at Wildgrass by Extrapolation. So be sure to check them out on all streaming platforms, only from Offshore Music. We'd also like to thank Buenos Panaderia and the Misty Mountain Cafe for giving me so much happiness and always supporting our show. Premium blend coffee with the Milo buns, really, it's the best combination in the world. So make sure to check out their social media pages. That's Buenos Dias Panaderia and the Misty Mountain Cafe. Now, from our friends from Liquor.Ph, they sent me this amazing bottle. Robert Burns, in case you don't know, and I just found out myself today, Robert Burns is the national poet of Scotland and also the writer of the official New Year's song, Old Lang Syne, which basically, if you're not familiar with the title, it's that New Year's song of should all acquaintance be forgot and all that New Year's song. He actually wrote it. He's a national poet of Scotland, and thanks to Aaron's Single Malt, they have created the Robert Burns Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Now, as a Scotsman, I'm sure he'd be very proud because he just got turned into a single malt. This Scotch is aged in ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks, making it smooth, malty, and sweet with a delicious spicy twist on the finish. At only 43% alcohol by volume and only 1,999 pesos, it's an easy decision to make, guys. So buy this whiskey. Don't be fooled. Get this and other Aaron Scotches exclusively from Liquor.Ph. Thank you so much. All right. So tonight we've got the Offshore gang with us, and we're going to be talking about all things offshore, and of course, why are they focusing on vinyl releases, which is a very brave thing for a record label to do. But we're going to be asking a lot more questions about not only their collections, but how Offshore Music started, how Offshore Music works, and where do they see themselves going in the next 10 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring on Pat, Derick, and of course, Ely Buendia onto the show. Hey
Hello.
guys, how you guys
Hello.
doing?
Hey.
Hi,
Oh,
Jamie.
hey guys, we're on GCQ alert level number 4 again. So I think this new system now is actually a lot clearer than the MECQ, MGCQ, all these like variants and all that. But how are you guys been doing during this pandemic, this extended pandemic we're actually going through right now? Pat, let's start with you.
I don't know. It's just extending and extending. That's how it feels. Like I don't have any sense of time anymore. I I I've yung band namin sa OFLAM, we all forgot that our single was coming out today. It's
Yeah,
that
it
bad.
did. Yeah, it came out.
Yeah. Yeah, but we all forgot. It was just out, and we're like, oh shit, oh nga, it's today. So yeah, that's an indicator of I don't know anymore. It's just yeah, just living day to day.
It's funny. It's like all the days are starting to blend into each other. Not like before, where when we'd be going out, we knew what the weekday was and we knew what the weekend was. And
Mm-hmm.
now even I get surprised. Na parang, huh? It's Friday? Huh? It's Wednesday? That
Yeah.
just happens. Eh. Or what about you, Derek? How you been doing during this pandemic?
Okay naman. I think I just look at it as a positive situation where I spend time with the family. My son, who is in high school, is also at home, so I get to see him most often, at saka my wife. But it's mostly work for me. And during I guess free time, we watch a lot of movies together, and I take time to also, of course, listen to music. So yeah, okay lang.
Well, I think with this pandemic and all of us, like basically the world stopping, a lot of us have turned into those two exact things: Netflix subscriptions and listening to all the music that we can get our hands on. And I
Oh,
think it's a good productive way to spend your time while we're locked down or our movements are controlled. But also, I can't wait to actually go back out there and watch like live bands again, or even play, like sing,
yeah.
and perform. But I think we just have to hold on a little bit longer before we get to that. So we have to hang on and hang in there. What about you, Ellie? How you been doing? You've been busy. You've got like a couple of concerts coming up, right?
Yeah, like you said, you have to hang on, and this is how I hang on. Um, I've been keeping busy with all things offshore. Tapos, yeah, I have a big thing coming up, that online show.
I think it's going to be a difficult. Is it a difficult transition doing an online show? I mean, I tried those streaming things, like the Kumu and that, and it's kind of difficult if in terms of this a talk show. That's easy. We're just talking, so it's like a Zoom call, right? But is it more difficult performing without an audience?
Definitely. I mean, there's the disconnect. It's kind of jarring. I mean, I performed like twice online, and I really didn't enjoy it. But you don't have any choice at this time.
I think it comes back to like I think with this situation that we're under with the lockdowns and this pandemic happened. I think it's coming down to us making choices of why we do what we do and what we really love about it. Because when you remove the audience, you're not getting energy from the audience. You're physically disconnected from the audience. I'm sure Pat also can relate. It's just a matter of like, okay, at least I'm with my bandmates and we can play loud and live or semblance of live, not wala lang audience, di ba? Online lang yung audience. So I think that's what's gonna matter. And also, what matters tonight, I mean, for me, I've always been curious. I've been doing my research. I've read a lot of articles, but I can't wait to actually find out from you guys. How did offshore music start? What was the seed of it? What made you want to start a record label? And how was offshore music born? Ellie, do you want to take that?
Sure. Basically, Offshore was founded because I wanted to release some new music because apartheid, uh, and I didn't want to do do all that all over again, like go major, kumbaga, go with a major label. So parang sabi ko, I'm like I'm nearing 50, so it's about time I'm independent, and that was the sort of the thing that drove me. And then nagkataon may mga taong who are like similarly inclined in terms of the love of vinyl, the love of music in general, and that was the board that started offshore. We were six at that time. Ngayon, tatlo naman kami. Uh, yeah, Pat's one of the board. So, yeah, that's how it started, basically.
So when you started offshore music, basically you wanted to you did you want to start? 'Cause, I mean, essentially record labels when you are releasing artists under your label, right? And this is correct me if I'm wrong. This is how I would imagine if I were to start it. You're looking for music that you can't find out there from the other labels that are existing. You want to foster artists, and this also starts from your musical tastes. But looking at offshore music stable of artists, they're all very different, which is quite interesting on its own because it's not like you're a rock label or a dance label or a pop label because you have a little bit of everything. But what do you think? How would you say that the artists under you, how would they be considered or labeled as an offshore music artist? What makes an offshore music artist? Pat, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I don't think naman it's about the genre, like you said, but look, I guess it's more of like a connection thing. Like if you can relate to this artist. Personally, also I like artists that are kind of very like courageous and like were really passionate and like don't really care about like what's uso or whatnot. Like they have a clear vision of who they are and what kind of music they want to make, or even down to like to how they want to look and stuff. I think it's you know, when you just meet a person, sometimes you just know like, oh, like this person's serious, or like this band is serious, like that. Like they want to do this. So yeah, it's more of that vibe.
And Derek, when you came into offshore, you basically got kidnapped by Sila Eli, in
Mhm.
consulting for offshore. Do you get a chance also to pick artists or to listen to their demos? Do you have do you give your input on like yan these guys are good? Eto hindi masyado. May ganun ba? May ganung dynamic ba?
Well, yeah. I guess how it works is Pat normally gets to recommend the bands, of course, at Ellie as well, and they get to share their demos. And to me, because I'm a music fan, I get to listen to their music. So primary talaga is if we dig the music, we like it. So doon pa lang, it's already parang a plus if we like the music. But at the same time, we also get to know the artists. So we get to talk to them and find out who they are, what their likes are, and there magkakaroon na nga ng connection. And once that connection is there, then we get to decide and say, "Uy, ito, there's a future in this artist, and we just want to listen to their music." And eventually, nga, we agreed that one of the best ways is if we could release their music or their albums on vinyl. So to us, we're also me myself. I'm a fan of the artists that we have in our roster. So primary to me is to get to listen to them live, and then release their albums on our favorite format, which is vinyl.
Now there's a big push. Of course, vinyl has been outselling all the other music formats for years now, and there are various reasons, whether it be for nostalgia or it's a better format to listen to. I think you were one of the first ones here in the Philippines who were pushing for vinyl releases. Why? I mean, I understand it's your favorite format, right? But why push for a vinyl release? It can't be practical because it's a risk. It's an actual physical unit that's selling it, right? I've asked Pat her reasons why she wanted to be released on vinyl, and of course, as a musician, you're like, yeah, man, I have my plaka ko, so that's bragging rights. But as a record label, that had to be some kind of a considerable risk in releasing an artist on a vinyl record. What decisions led to that? How do you choose which artists get released into vinyl? Who would like to take that? Ellie, you want to take that?
Sure. Um, I'd like to say that I would love to say that there was a lot of thought that went into our first foray into vinyl manufacturing, vinyl selling, but no, there wasn't because we were all again musicians and music lovers, vinyl lovers, and I think, the very first meeting was like, let's release vinyl, and that was it. Wala nang consideration at all whether we could afford it or whether it would sell. We just wanted a vinyl release out, and we wanted to be the first to come out with this release, which was the first Apartel album
Yeah.
in a way, which was the first to be uh, released locally. That was a double album, and 45-degree angle, 45 RPM release. So yeah, that was a first, and we're very proud of that.
Well, I think you've paved the way in showing that this is possible. It's not only a good business decision, but also a good artistic decision. But there had to be challenges along the way in terms of how to release vinyl, because do we even have any vinyl pressing here at all? Wala na, 'di ba?
No, no,
So you had to go abroad. So that entailed a lot of research. What goes into releasing a vinyl?
Derek.
Oh yeah, let's hear from Derek.
Well, because we're collectors, and I guess in the years of collecting, you somewhat know um, what are good pressings, who are the good engineers that could remaster a record. Even the cover. Who are these printing companies that could provide quality jackets? So obviously we have the internet now. We get to source out different factories, and yun nga, because we're familiar in the sense that the records we buy, there's some consideration on who mastered the record, how it sounds, what's a good. Sometimes we get to ask what would be a good color for the vinyl, because hindi lang black ngayon, everybody's
Oh.
craving for colored vinyl. So those different aspects, given our experience and our joy for playing a record, is already factored in on how we approach in releasing vinyl. So we started in reaching out to Japan, in a factory in Japan, because it's nearest to us, and at the same time because of the perceived and the perceived quality of how Japanese uh, press the records. We felt that that would be the right direction. So we start again. Kanina sabi ni Ellie, um, hindi na namin inisip kung it's gonna make business sense. We just felt that we'd want to have a record, and we'd want to release a quality record. So those considerations: quality, good sounding record, uh, and so that's how we work on our releases on vinyl.
So going back a little bit, no, for in terms of running a record label before you decided to release on vinyl, or if that was always the plan, what are the main challenges in running a record label? I would know. I've never been at on that side of the equation, but what are your biggest challenges? Pat, let's hear from you. I want to hear from each of you guys because I'm sure you have all unique challenges in running offshore music or helping run offshore music. So I want to know what
Mm,
your biggest challenges are.
um, it's a lot of like computer work and like admin type things. Like I mean that's that's like I guess that's the hard part. It's like, oh yeah, like so many ideas, like so many like the making the music or producing the music, I think is the easier
Yeah,
part actually.
that
And
that
then
that could be your reward. Like, oh, I want to be in the studio with an artist. That's the reward for
yeah,
doing
yeah,
having to do all the admin work every day.
yeah. Or I mean like yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know business sense wise before joining, or it was I didn't get to apply it in like a practical way yet. So I mean I didn't go to like any business school or anything. So um being being here it's kind of like OJT kagad or something like ganun yung vibe like in the start. And okay naman like uh it's scary lang I think at first because it's kind of overwhelming. It's like oh crap, like have to like find a sponsor like that, like that, and then it's like how do I do that? But you just like just it's just like learning as you go kind of thing. So that I think that for me is like something I definitely that I learned being in offshore.
I think also it would be a unique experience coming from the artistic side, like being a musician and just being asked to play, on albums
Yeah.
versus, seeing what actually goes on in order to produce, to record, to produce, and to release your
Mm-hmm.
music. I think that gives you a newfound appreciation of what it takes. It takes a village to release a song, not just the
Mm-hmm.
band, not just the engineer, but it takes everybody on the record label to be on your side. It takes marketing. It takes all these aspects. I think did it give you a newfound appreciation for just being a musician when you're
It definitely yeah like it's like two sides of the coin, but you're on both sides like that. Like
well,
you're on yeah. So I guess then there's also it's more systematic. I guess like I think I'm kind of like stubborn as an artist and stuff, but now I'm less stubborn, I guess.
because now you have to deal with other artists and take care of other artists.
Or like you just know like what goes what the process behind it. I guess is more you know more about it more. Yeah.
Derek, what about you? What are your biggest challenges in consulting for offshore?
I think it's bringing the music to a broader audience. You know, so it's important that you we get to communicate and bring the music to a lot of people so that they could hear how good the artist and the single that we release. And currently, I know there's social media, and from well we try to reach out to as much people as possible, but there's so much music out there, eh? So you got to be ahead of everyone, and you have to really make a statement. And so and even when you release a single, for example, there should the way you communicate the music, there should be impact and should catch the attention of the listener. Otherwise, again, you'll be drowned with so many music from different labels, from different artists, and to me, that's important. So To me, that's really the biggest challenge is broadening our audience so that we're relying on digital streams. You got to have
Yeah.
millions and millions of streams to make the business work, and again to bring that music to everyone, for them to enjoy it and get to stream it and put it in their playlist. To me, that's the biggest challenge.
So to everybody listening right now, okay, you heard millions and millions of streams. So make sure, when you tune into your favorite artist, you make sure to just keep on, keep that song on repeat. Because if it's a good song, you'll keep it on repeat anyway. That's what I do. When I discover a new song, like Enna Mori's "Oh Blessed Hearts," really like, or "Bleeding Hearts." Oh my God! When I heard that, I'm like, it's on repeat all day. So I'd like to think that each individual listener, it's in their hands now. It's not just moving units, but it's how many times, since it's digital streaming, it's how many times you play that song. And if you love that song, if you're like me, you're gonna play the shit out of that song like all week long. So if it takes millions of streams to actually make the business model work, eventually you can be rewarded by a vinyl release, so you can actually hold that piece of music in your hands. That would be great. I think that would be an essential thing to make this work. And also, if you keep on supporting, like for example, if fans like me who listen to music all the time, if we continue to support like record labels like you and people who are turning out unique releases, then we can expect more releases and more artists. And that's just how the model works. We can't take a passive step. It's actually, a lot of it is in the fans' hands now, in terms of digital releases and streaming and sharing, and making playlists. And I think it's very important that as music lovers, we take an active role in making sure that the artists that we love can release another album, man. That's the only way to do it, you know? And I think that's been around for a while, but never more so now in the digital age, in the streaming age. It's actually in our hands. Ellie, let me ask you, what's the biggest challenge for you in terms of heading offshore? I'm sure you get a lot of demos out there, that are sent into you that sound like the Eraserheads. And I've heard you rant about it. I've seen your posts also, and I'm sure you're not looking for the next Eraserheads. But what is it that you're looking for when you listen to these demos?
Yeah, I would consider this aspect of the job challenge because um, first of all, there's a lot of talent out there, and uh, being a musician myself and knowing what it feels like to not have an audience or not having people appreciate your songs. There's almost parang compulsion on my part and generally Offshore's part. Parang let's sign all of them, diba? Parang there's like only like what 5 6 actual record labels here, and a lot of those talents are looking for a place to call home. And if we had a choice, we would want all those artists to call Offshore home. But being a really small company, we just can't do that. We don't have the manpower, nor do we have the financial capability as of now to really take care of artists and see to it that uh, their career is taken care of. So yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge in being a small company like Offshore.
I think it's interesting when you guys mention that you get to know the artists. Like, if you like their music, the next step is getting to know the artists and seeing if you're uh, if you're aligned, if you can work with each other. I think that's a really important factor, because no matter how brilliant the music is, if the band or the artist is a jerk, then and he's hard to work with, then I'm sure that plays a part in your consideration of signing an artist. Am I correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah.
you, because if you can't, if you want to make him sakal in the first 5 minutes of meeting him, then dehin na to, di ba? I don't care how good your music is, I can't work with
Well,
you.
the only jerk that I would sign is Nito Adriano.
Nito is naman not that difficult.
No, di ba the jerk siya?
Oh, there you
Okay.
go. There you go. There you go.
A little
So I mean,
joke there.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious. It was just his birthday, ah. Si Nitoy. So happy birthday,
Yeah, yeah,
Nitoy.
happy birthday, Tornits! Woo!
Oh, we love you. We love you,
Love you.
Senor. But I'm wondering. Okay, so how many submissions do you get on, say, a weekly basis from bands who want to be signed by Offshore? Does anybody here know? Who checks
Well,
the emails?
we're not at liberty to say.
Oh no. Are you going to the I can neither confirm nor deny? Maybe we should call Audrey onto the show.
No, it's around siguro mga 5 or 10 a week.
5 or 10 a week. That's a lot of artists to listen to. And I'm sure, like, since you have to consider, if before you pick one, what's the process of you picking an artist? Is it a democratic? Do you guys all have to vote? Do you guys argue amongst each other? Do you guys fight for one band? I mean, are there any disagreements going on within the decision making to sign an artist?
Well, not really, kasi we have departments naman like uh, Pat here is basically in the the recruiting department. So yeah, kami naman ni Derek, like if, kumbaga we trust naman her tastes and Audrey's taste also. So parang we defer na lang, and so far wala pa naman kaming parang ayaw namin yan. So far naman ano, we agree pa rin. Wala.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's basically sensing a lot of, like, trust. Yes, Chino, slow ko naman. Yeah, medyo slow kasi I have to take him seriously, di ba? I can't assume everything Ellie's saying could be a joke. And Ellie's the master of the deadpan delivery. So sometimes it takes me a few seconds to get a joke of his. And I'm notorious for being slow anyway. So hi to Chino, big record collector, or big vinyl collector also. We're doing let's do shout out also. There's a guy here, Norberto Lacap. He's watching from Milan, Italy. Oh, check that out. A lot of people are on the feed now asking, basically choice commenting also. Laki ng improvement ng Abbey Road remastered, the full flood. Um, People are also saying, see, Rocky Road naman is saying Vicor will be pressing vinyls again next year. So that's a good sign for the major record labels also to start getting in the business, because competition, I think, is always great. But I think what keeps us together in terms of the music and the music industry, it's understandable that there are other record labels out there. There's a lot of artists and talented people out there for the taking, basically, who want to reach a bigger audience. But I think what keeps us solid is a community. I think the musicians in particular and music lovers specifically are a big community, and that really goes into the vinyl aspect of it. I didn't realize that there's a huge vinyl community here in the Philippines. I've only recently started collecting. Actually, my wife started collecting, and I'm just helping her, facilitate her collection. Um, but the vinyl community, how did that start here in the Philippines? Derek, let's go to you. You've been collecting for a while, right?
Yeah, siguro mga maybe 10 years, ganyan. So, in Facebook, there's quite a number of audio communities. And It's, of course, from my end, I wanted to get to know, more vinyl releases. Another thing that I wanted to understand is what would be a good gear that I could have that won't break the bank. So I ventured into vintage audio, and of course, you need recommendations from the experts. So naturally, I joined and invited the rest of Offshore to be part of audio communities, and that's where we shared music, and at the same time naging inspiration din sila for us to release vinyl. So yeah.
What's amazing with the vinyl community, and they're very helpful. Like, I'm part of a few of the Facebook groups on the audiophiles and the vinyl community, and everybody just recommends. Everybody's very generous with their recommendations, their advice. Sometimes they just make yabang, oh, look what I picked up, diba? I mean, ganun din tayo lahat.
Mm.
Look at the album I found, today, or I got today. But nothing, actually, for me, nothing reflects that more than World Record Store Day. And I think that's amazing, in a sense where there's one day, well, not during the pandemic, but hopefully when we get out of it, we'll come back, right? World Record Store Day is an amazing opportunity for the community to get together. And I've actually gone through several record store days, and I've gone home much poorer because, syempre, all the record resellers are there, right? But how does you guys have been part of Record Store Day, and you've actually hosted some record store days? How does that work? How is it difficult getting everybody together?
I'll answer that siguro because it started nga with the audio with an audio community, um, and they invited us. Because we get to talking about music, they invited us to work with them. We felt that it was a good opportunity to release something during that event. So we worked with them and had the first record store day event in Buddha Bar. In fact, I would want to share that this one, if you remember, Ellie and Pat, this was
Yeah.
this this was the one that we were supposed to release during that first event, but did not materialize because of the quality, and that's where we parang had to make sure that we can't just release because this record, when we first got it, some trivia, and we listened to it, it didn't pass our quality assurance, and we felt that, oy, kahit na may event, we couldn't release it. So after the first event, we felt that, oy, we need to do another round, so that on the second record store day in the Philippines, we released the better pressing of that single of Itchy Worms, Ellie and the Itchy Worms. But again, it entails a lot of work, no, and cooperation within the community because um, in that event you get to uh, parang enjoy the different records being sold by the different sellers and the record stores. Tapos meron pa siyang concert. So it's
Mm.
just a really good event that a lot of music lovers attended during that time. And sayang lang during this pandemic, hindi na natuloy. We were supposed to do another one, but because of the pandemic, hindi natuloy. So we're looking forward to having another event. Though Record Store Day is still being held in some selected countries, pero dito sa atin, yung mga store day vinyl releases na lang ang dumadating, and that's what we try to look for and see what we can have.
What's amazing with World Record Store Day, like if I'm looking for something specific, and I'll mention this one instance where we were doing Angling El Bimbo the musical in Resorts World, and it was World Record Store Day in Resorts World, and we had two shows that day. And our friend Chino Vigilas, who's watching right now, we were very excited because it's right outside, and I remember that date was payday pa for us actors, so we're like, wow, sakto. And I said, no, maybe not. I have to, like, stop myself from blowing all my money on World Record Store Day. And I specifically, my friend Chino I told him specifically, I'm looking for the Cosby, Stills, Nash and Young Deja Vu album because I don't have it yet, right? And I remember him in between shows telling me, "Uy, meron." So I went out with him, and it's amazing because when you're in World Record Store Day, although technically there are resellers and there are record stores, there are labels there also. It's amazing because if one particular stall does not have it, this guy will actually help you out and tell him, "Hindi, pumunta ka sa kabila, meron yan." 'Di ba? Or ask this guy if he has that copy, because I'm sure, I think I saw his copy there and all that. It's all a very it's a very generous community and a very helpful community. And when you're part of Record Store Day, guys, when you go to Record Store Days, do you guys cruise the other stalls as well? Like Ellie, do you cruise the other stalls? Shopping
Uh,
for vinyl as
hindi,
well?
hindi ako makabuelo pag ganyan eh.
I think you should go in disguise, you know, and so they won't raise the prices if they're thinking, "Oh no, it's Ellie. We're gonna raise the prices." You should go in disguise.
No, as a matter of fact, they give uh, good discounts
Oh,
when
see,
I
that's
buy them.
amazing. See, that's an amazing community. You can actually make tawad. They can give you discounts. Sometimes they even give you freebies. Like I remember getting stickers from you guys when I bought some LPs from you guys in Resorts. Well, I got free stickers, and I'm like, hey, stickers. It doesn't take much to make me happy. But I think as a community, yeah, Chino, you're right. Chino's here watching. He's commenting. Yeah, it's a family. And I think it's a family that's been bonded in the love for this particular format, and that's rooted in the love of music to begin with. Because when you see, it's also nice to go to World Record Store Days, because not only you checking out the vinyls, you're checking out the records, but at the same time also you're with your peeps, with your community. I bumped into several friends who are heavy jazz guys, and they're busy digging through the crates of jazz. I see guys who, like me, nag-aagawan kami sa mga rock and roll albums na nahanap namin. And yeah, Chino, we should buy with Ellie para may discount tayo palate. Oh, hayop si Chino eh. Opportunist. Magaling yan.
Ako, Jamie, I have to admit, one of the perks of Record Store Day and being part of it is to actually be there during the setup in the morning. Sa ingress pa lang, ako naman nando na. So to get to choose and have first dibs on what
Oh,
the
that's
sellers are.
that's so unfair. You get dibs.
Yeah.
But I guess that those are the perks if you're organizing it, and then like you probably like, oh, anong meron dyan? Hey, I think it's always a fun experience. Um, Now that a lot of people are like ordering online and stuff, and these are very specific ways of participating in the vinyl cultures that you order online. But I cannot, for the life of me, replace that experience of digging through a crate of records. There's something magical about it. It's the same way as buying books. You go to a bookstore and you look at the shelves and you're looking through the books. You're looking through the vinyls that you have. You're checking out the artwork. It's in your actual hands, and I think that's the most for me. That's the one part of collecting that I really really enjoy. And I think with you guys continuing the vinyl culture, propagating the vinyl culture, doing vinyl releases of Filipino artists, I think that's a great way to go. And if this is your current like plan right now, you're celebrating 5 years, guys. It's 5 years of offshore music, of releasing quality music, good pressings of records, and contributing to to the sonic landscape and culture of the Filipino, where do you guys see yourselves 5 years from now? Let's start with Pat. And Pat, I hope
Uh,
you don't. I hope you guys grow to a degree where you don't have to do the admin stuff anymore, because it sounded so painful.
yeah. 10 years. 5 years from now.
5 years.
Um, we'll still be on this podcast and we'll be celebrating the 10th year. Kind of. I don't know. I mean, sana, well, more records, more physical records. I don't know. I'm not good at these like like predicting the future stuff.
Well,
Like
more
I don't.
records. That's always a good
Yeah,
plus. More
yeah,
records, more
and
artist
I
releases.
mean, yeah, and for our artists to be where they want to be also, and to be more successful and I mean only good things naman sana 5 years from now.
Good. Derek, what about you? Where do you see offshore music in 5 years?
I'm more of a really hoping for the best for our artists to shine and to have more albums, more releases for them. To me, kasi for as long as our artists are happy and they get to release more albums, to us that's personal satisfaction already. You know, the acknowledgement that they could get is we get to have that praise as well. So to me, for as long as Pat was saying, for as long as the artist will be able to achieve and go where they want to go in that 5 year span, we're gonna be happy. Apart from having more records from them and additional artists, of course, additional artists, maybe from playing a different genre. We'd like to have maybe another jazz artist on board. Um, uh, Yun, that's to me that's the dream, and that's I feel that where offshore will be heading, and hopefully we'll be accomplishing that in the next 5 years.
Awesome. What about you, Ellie? Where do you see offshore going in the next 5 years?
Um, I'm just hoping, we get to sign more artists and get them known, not just here and but all over the world.
There you go. That's a dream. I mean, I'm imagining that you guys will get a box seat in the Grammy Awards. You get to walk the red carpet because an offshore release has been recognized, internationally. And that's really the dream, because really it's not just for your artist, but it's for the Filipino artist. And we've got so much talent in this country that the rest of the world is barely
Mix awards
discovering it.
muna.
Huh?
Bago Grammys, mix awards muna.
Oh, mix awards.
Wish awards.
Step by step. Ayan.
Uh,
See, that's where I see us going, not just in the next 5 years, but I want this to happen really soon. An all offshore music festival in the pipeline. Kahit online, hindi. Gusto ko live. Pero yeah, sige, pwede online. Pero ang ganda niyan. I mean, that would be fantastic in terms of like, bringing your artists all together. And I'm sure with with the variety of artists that you have under your roster, I can only imagine the possibility of collaborations between them. I think that would be so interesting. I think Jun Lupito playing on an Enamori album would blow my mind. Like literally, I would have to pick up pieces of my brain. I think the way you're choosing your artists and the way you're working with these artists are it's so important that you continue what you're doing, because you're giving Filipino artists a bigger audience and the audience that they deserve. There we go from our friend here, Keratan. Is that the name? I can't see. Thanks for
Kirsten,
the yeah, Kirsten. There you go. Thanks for the full flood din na remaster at Abbey Road. Ang ganda talaga ng tunog. Yeah, there you go, guys. I
Thank
mean,
you,
you
thank
you
you.
you you get to go to Abbey Road. Seriously. So how can the Grammys be that far away? you're in Abbey Road na. You know what I mean? And okay, so that leads us. Okay, so that's 5 years from now, and hopefully, yeah, more artists, more vinyl releases, more releases in general, because I think the world needs to hear more Filipino music out there. And I think this is gonna bring us to my favorite part in our vinyl nights, where we ask our guests to show their top 10. And of course, everybody's saying ang hirap naman ng top 10. Jamie, it's like picking 10 of your favorite children out of your entire collection. But we're gonna hear from our guests, and they're gonna be showing us the top 10 vinyls that they have picked out for the show, and we're gonna see what if there are any stories behind them, why they love these albums, and we'll get to get a glimpse of their collections for vinyl night. So let's start out with Ellie. Let's start out with you. Let's do one per person, so we go around, and then we can comment on each person's LP that they're showing. All right, Ellie, let's start with you. What's your first? Ooh, I can't read it. Can you say the title?
Switched
This
on.
is switched on Bach. Switched on
Ah,
Bach.
yes.
Bale, si ano to, yung Moog performance ng mga works ni Bach and performed by Walter Carlos, now Wendy Carlos. Uh, yeah, this is a trip talaga. And this is my first vinyl na quadra, quadraphonic.
Quadraphonic.
I still don't know what that means though. Derick tells me it's good. It's good sounding.
Is
So
it
yeah.
Bach na naka synth or
Yes,
it's
yung synth na Bach.
Ah,
um,
So
interesting.
Moog synthesizers, bale.
Ah, so you use the Moog. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's all back pieces
Right,
from
right.
Johann Sebastian Bach.
Yeah.
That's an
This came out
interesting
in the
choice.
60s. Came out in the 60s when the Moog synthesizer was just, taking off.
Wow, that's a fantastic record. All right, Derek, let's go to you. What's your first?
My first one is I'd probably say it's my favorite. It's from the Manchester band who used to be Joy Division. It's New Order, Substance. It's a compilation of their singles in their extended versions and some other new tracks. What's good about this is you get to hear the full length version of their singles, and meron din B-sides. This is my favorite kasi almost from start to end talagang you'll enjoy it, no? Um, Initially when I got to learn about this was through my high school classmate pa. During that time I saw him bragging and sharing that he has two albums from the US, two records. The first one was The Clash, London Calling, at ito yung isa. Eventually, I was able to persuade him to lend me his copies. I liked London Calling. I liked two songs from that album. Of course, it's a classic. London Calling was a good single. Lost in the Supermarket, Spanish Bombs. Pero when I heard this, sabi ko, wow. During this time, sikat na sikat yung Bizarre Love Triangle. Pero to me, what I really liked here are tracks like Perfect Kiss, Thieves Like Us, and Ceremony. So this is my favorite. Yeah.
Nice, nice. All right, Pat, let's go to your first.
um this is Psychedelic Swamp by Dr. Dog. Uh so this is one of my favorite albums, I think. And Dr. Dog is also one of my favorite bands. I think they're mostly known to be like an alternative or like folk kind of country band. But this album was a little, I mean, like the title says, it was a little bit more psychedelic, and it was the trippiest album for me because most of their albums it's like mainly centered around like acoustic guitars and like you know, but this one they used a lot of like synthesizers and stuff, but the songwriting didn't change. It's still very much the parang very romantic kind of like dorky Doctor Dog stuff. So um and I always play it when my friends are over because it's just easy in the ears and stuff. So
Nice, nice. I'm gonna have to check that out. Doctor Dog. That's what I love about doing this show. I get all new inputs on like what new music to search out for because that's important now. It has to be a targeted search for music. So I have to like. It's nice that these are basically coming at me like personal recommendations. So that's a psychedelic swap by Doctor Dog. Ellie, let's see your number two.
So this is Blade Runner, the Blade Runner
Vangelis, yes.
soundtrack. Uh, it's red,
Oh,
and yeah, it's one of the greatest, I think, greatest soundtracks of all time. From one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. So yeah, what's not to love about this album? I can listen to this the whole day. Like I can go to sleep playing this. I can just have it running and imagine I'm Harrison Ford investigating murders by replicants. Yeah.
it's amazing that because I'm a big fan of the Blade Runner films as well and the soundtrack as well. When it came out on cassette, I got the cassette. When I got that came out on CD, I got the CD. And you're right, you can leave it on the whole day, and it gives you a mood. It's
Definitely.
really sets a mood na parang you're wondering if you're familiar with Blade Runner. To our audience out there, it is one of the best sci-fi films, and it's actually one of the few sci-fi films that has predicted the future technology, not in terms of flying cars, but Ellie, do you remember that scene where Harrison Ford was zooming in on
Yeah. Yeah.
the snake, on the
Mm-hmm.
the scale of
Uh,
the snake?
mm.
And then years later, when Harrison Ford did the movie Clear and Present Danger, they were examining an explosion, and the exact same thing was happening. They were zooming in, zooming in, zooming in.
But this
But
time
this
it's real world tech.
but this time the technology actually existed. So
Mm.
that's amazing. But then yeah, that soundtrack is killer. That's
Yeah.
definitely on my to get list. The Blade Runner soundtrack. Derek, let's hear your second one.
Yeah. Before go to my second one, I wanted to say I wanted to give a shout out to Rene Rivo. Leroy Hudson didn't make my top 10, unfortunately. It was my top 11 choice. Pero for my number two is a record from 1985. It's the sixth album of The Cure, The Head on the
Yes.
Door.
Yes.
Being uh, part of the 80s, talagang favorite ko yung post-rock new wave, no? And this to me is my favorite The Cure album. When I first heard this, and when you listen pa lang to the first track, no, in between days, you'll really get drawn to it already. And I know that I like this album because apart from the commercial hits or their singles, na-enjoy ko rin yung mga ibang tracks like The Blood, Push. Yung The Blood, I remember may flamenco guitar playing si Robert Smith, and I liked it, and sabi ko, is it parang a blasphemous song because he was singing I mean that's related to God. But anyways, what I like also about The Cure is when you look at them performing, pag nakita mo si Robert Smith strumming the guitar and his movements, parang medyo mai-impress ka talaga eh. So, hindi lang sa record, but even when they play live, they're really very good. I haven't watched them though, but yeah, this to me is my number two.
I was obsessed with The Cure before. I used to hunt down. I went on a journey of hunting down all their albums. Umabot ako, and surprisingly, where I found them was Unimart in Green Hills, because nobody ever goes to the record store in Unimart back in the day. Everybody's just going to the grocery. So that's where I actually completed my collection of The Cure. But that album, and you're right, as soon as In Between Days starts, you're hooked. You're hooked. And I love the B-sides as well. I had the very same thoughts when I was older and I was realizing what the song The Blood was about. I was like, hey, that's pretty cool, because you I've never heard a song that would take on such deep meaning, a deeper meaning to that. But then on your first listen, you liked it, and then when you find out more about it, parang the song grows with you, or you're growing up enough to understand what he was really singing about. And that's the genius, really, of The Cure. Because when I revisit them nowadays, it's like listening to them for the first time. You're familiar with the hooks, you're familiar with the grooves, but when you really listen to the song as compared to an 18-year-old Jamie compared to a 48-year-old Jamie, it's very different. So it's parang the song is growing with you. And I personally love that album as well. So thanks, Derek, for that. Pat, let's hear your second one.
Yeah, my second album is One Arm Bandit by Jaga Jazzes or Yaga Yazis. I don't know. They're from Norway. So Jaga Jazzes is well, if you Google them, they're like they fall under like jazz post rock experimental category, but I can't really say they're one more than the other. Their music is just really unique to me. This album, when I first heard it, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like in a good way, and like it's like super journey yung album na to, and they're like a 13 or 15 piece band or something like that. And when you watch them on like live videos and stuff, it's just amazing. And also late like after listening to them for a while, I found out also that the drummer was like the main composer and arranger. So that kind of put things into like a different perspective for me, and I tried to start listening to that way, and then I think that's when I really got into the band. So this is my second album.
Fantastic. That's just an
Yeah,
eclectic choice. But then, I love the fact that you listen to them and then you find out that the drummer is the main composer. So
yeah,
that does change the perspective on things.
mhm, yeah.
No? That's fantastic. Ellie, let's hear your third.
Naunahan ako ni Derick sa Head on the Door. So, may backup ako. This is the Smiths.
Yeah.
The Queen is Dead. I think their third or fourth album. Third or fourth, yeah. All their albums are super good. They're great. But ito yung pinaka, I think, uh, tawag dito, pinaka finest nila, si Mar and Morrissey and the band, of course. Uh, Finest performances, finest songwriting. Yeah, walang tapon dito sa album na to. And the Smiths and the Cure were basically my heroes, songwriting wise, when I was in high school. Yeah.
Nice, nice. That's the best Smith's album, sabi ni Chino. Tapos Derek, ang daming nagre-react sa Cure. Ang daming
Mm.
Kyoto, Blood Song.
Kyoto, yeah.
ah,
Ito.
Tapos may mga nagko-comment din na yung Disintegration album. Meron din. Yeah, so I mean, OMG The Cure. Oh, yan, from Arvin. And then Richie Makapinlak, Panalo Yang Head on the Door. Yeah, man, it's a great. Actually, all their albums are great, just like the Smiths. All their albums are great, and it's I understand it's so difficult for you guys to choose 10 albums. So thank you for actually taking the time to
Yeah.
go through your collections.
No cheating. No cheating.
No cheating this time. Yeah, no cheating. Pero at least Ellie may backup ka. So
May
that's
backup ako.
coming prepared. That's galing. Oh, Derek, ikaw naman.
Um, right. Third
We're taking a look at our
album.
third. Yeah.
Again, it's an '80s album. It was released in 1985. It's Mike Francis features. It's a pop album. No, it's actually considered. Eventually, I realized that it was considered the genre that Mike Francis is in is Italo dance, uh, because he popularized the track "Let Me In."
Mm.
Pero that track was is not part of this album. Pero when you get to listen to his different songs here, um, you'll really enjoy his music, no? So from Features of Love, Upside Down, tapos he has covers here from
Mm.
10cc, I'm Not in Love is here, at saka, what's that? Another one is his cover of Bill Withers' Lovely Day is also
Ah,
here.
yes,
And it's
yes,
a
I
really,
remember.
really good sounding album. So yeah, this one.
Nice, nice. His cover of Bill Withers is pretty good. Actually, I think I first heard his version before I realized that it was Bill Withers.
Same here actually.
Di
Oh,
ba? And when
lovely
I heard
day.
Bill Withers, I was like, sino yan? Kinover? Tapos yung pala siya yung nagsulat. I mean, that's part and parcel of your discovery for music, right? When artists cover and make their songs their own, and you listen to their versions, then you discover the original versions. That's just part of the journey of our discovering music. From the current permutations to the source, to the actual songwriter. Like I remember, in following up that idea, I didn't realize how many versions of Respect were out there. And when Aretha Franklin released it, even the writer, I forget who the writer was, the original writer, he's a blues guy. He said, no, it's Aretha's. It's not even my song anymore. It's Aretha's because she recorded and performed the definitive version of Respect, where even the songwriter himself was saying, yeah, man, that's her song. And that's amazing when you discover things like that. No, thanks for that, Derek. Um, Pat, let's go to you.
Yeah, this is Drunk by Thundercat. It's a 10-inch album. It's the first one I've ever seen in real life. I didn't even know they existed, man.
I don't. I up to like I'm today years old. I didn't
Yeah,
realize they came in 10 inches.
yeah. It's also red. Um, yeah, Thundercat is he's primarily a bassist, but he's also a songwriter. Um, he's also under Brain Feeder Records, which is owned by Flying Lotus. And the last show I was on, I showed you the Kamasi Washington album,
Yes,
with
yes.
also under Brain Feeder. So this is one of my. I mean, I've spent a lot of time also listening to this album. It's got a lot of collabs on it. Like what's that? Kendrick Lamar and like Wiz Khalifa and stuff. But my favorite one is his collaboration with Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins. So
Wow.
they're on a track together with Thundercat, and it's super good. That's my favorite song off the album, I think, amidst all the crazy funk stuff. Sobrang it's odd, but it's bagay. So yeah, you guys should check that out. The Thundercat Drunk album.
Nag-comment si Chino. I'm the same way, Chino. Grabe Pat's selection, learning new stuff, man. I mean, like, yeah, that's why I love doing this show because I end up like, after the live broadcast, I go back and I rewind the actual video and I take down notes of all the artists that our guests have shared. and that just leads me down to a rabbit hole of discovery of music. Especially Pat's got some eclectic stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you the list after, dude, so you can
Yay!
check it
All
out any
right.
time. Yeah.
Yes, please. All right, Eddie, let's go to your fourth.
Um, well, this night would not be complete if uh, I did not select this album.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So yeah, this is the double album 45 RPM version of Full Flood. Offshore came out with the single 12-inch vinyl release. And then we of course decided na this has to come out on 45 RPM, and this has to be mastered at Abbey Road. And I was not disappointed with the mastering. Miles Showell mastered this. He's the go-to guy in 35 RPM mastering. He mastered everyone from Queen to the Beatles and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm very proud of this. Not just because it's a double album, but I'm very proud of this album. And I love Pat's drumming on this. I love the songs. I love the musicianship on this album, and this is the only album where all the original members are still here. So yeah, I have good memories of this album.
So going into Abbey Road for the mastering, how the
Oh,
hell was?
I wish I went to Abbey Road. I did not.
Oh, you did not. So
No,
you
no.
just sent him the files.
Oh, I think it was in the middle of the pandemic, or I don't know, or the I think medyo walang budget to go to Abbey Road, but we were talking to Odds and I were talking to Miles Showell, and he extended an invitation to visit him at Abbey Road pag wala ng pandemic. So yeah, we might just take him up on that offer.
Oh man, yes, please. And then you have to tell us all about that experience because I can imagine just walking in, what the history that's in that place. I'm sure you're gonna be bugging him with a lot of questions, a lot of cuentos, and just to be a fly on the wall would be nice to just see that entire experience. Yeah, he's an amazing sound engineer, Chino. It's
Right,
galeng,
right.
and the Full Flood album sounds amazing. Not just because not just because of the engineering, but the songs alone, the people playing on it, are it's an incredible album. I can't gush enough about that. I'm so glad I have a copy, and really I try my best not to make it gas gas because I want to preserve it somehow. So I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do that. All right, Derek, let's go to your fourth.
I'm a Pearl Jam fan, and the my next album, my favorite one of well, my favorite of theirs is Vitology.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I started listening to them when they released 10 and then eventually Versus. Pero this one is the album that really parang made me like them even more. I guess because when they released this in 1994, in 1995 they played here in the Philippines and I got to see them live, and they played tracks from this album, and I really liked how they performed. Um,
That was at Folk Arts, diba?
it was in folk arts.
Yeah.
This was the last album where my favorite Pearl Jam drummer, Dave Abruzzese, um, yeah, he was my favorite, and this was his last album. Uh, the tracks that I like here, coincidentally, is "Spin the Black Circle," which is um, their a song for their love for vinyl. No, so it's one of my favorites, together with the first track, "Last Exit," and a lot more. Yeah.
I think when they played here live, I did actually go to that concert. I remember coming straight from the beach, getting home, and my friend called me right as I got stepping inside the door. My friend called me, Jamie, I have ticket. Let's go. So I made takas from the house. I remember going there in my sandals. Okay, I was in sandals. I was in jeans and a t-shirt, but I wore sandals. And of course, me being me, I wanted to go into the mosh pit, and I lost my chinelas in like in the span of like 20 seconds. But the funny thing about being in that mosh pit, and it's the only mosh pit I've ever been in that was actually so considerate and people were taking care of each other, that I don't remember getting stepped on. I was barefoot for the rest of the show, and I didn't get stepped on not once. And I was slam dancing in that mosh pit in the front in the folk arts theater when they played. And for me, that was like, wow, that's amazing, because my feet probably would have been murdered if it was in any other circumstances. The one thing also that amazed me with how they played that night, Derek, if you remember, I've never heard a band play so heavy at breakneck speed, and then they can
Mm.
turn on a dime. They can stop on a dime and turn, and without missing a beat. I was like, wow, I've never seen a band play that heavy, that fast, and be able to, change it up at the drop of a hat. And that's what really impressed me about, hindi lang sila magaling sa plaka, pero tangin ang galing nila live.
Yeah.
Ang husay nila. So that's a fantastic choice. Pat, let's go to you.
Um, yeah, so this is yeah, I love that Pearl Jam album. This is a Knee Body plus Daedalus collab album. Knee Body, I think they're both artists from LA. That's why this makes sense. Knee Body is they're kind of like a new school kind of jazz band, I guess. I don't know. I'm a big fan. I don't know how to describe it. They sound kind of like a rock band, but with jazz instruments, like
Wow.
saxophones and I mean with horns and like it's heavy. I don't know. It's not swing at all. It sounds a little more modern. And Daedalus is electronic artist. Um, he's one of the first electronic artists that I really, really got into in college, I think, because it was the first time I had heard electronic music on that one album he had in 2010. It was the first time I heard electronic music to be mixed with world music and not in a ati-atihan way. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
not
yeah,
in like a
yeah.
budots, like fiesta way, So that was kind of life changing for me. And then so these are basically two of my favorite artists on one record performing together and performing each other's songs. And it's also under Brain Feeder. I guess I have a preference. So it also released under Brain Feeder Records. Yeah, so there's that.
Ang daming nagko-comment that we have to take notes sa listahan ni Pat. Yeah, man. Seriously. Just
Sorry.
replay the episode and take down your notes. That's great because it's an opportunity to discover new groups and new acts that we have never heard of. Just in case people are also, yeah, I know the Ati-Atihan way, that was classic, right? And we all know what she means. Just for a reminder, the full flood is still available in Plaka Planet and on NEC. Just make sure to grab the last few copies because it's a damn good album, guys, and it's a damn good pressing. You need this in your life. All right, Ellie, let's
Correction,
go.
it's Plaka Express.
Plaka Express.
Mm.
Sorry, Plaka Express. Corrected. So make sure you grab your copies, guys, because this is something that you simply must have in your life if you're a collector, and even if you're not, it's such an amazing album. All right, Ellie, let's go to your next one.
I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with this band, they're called the Beatles. Uh, this is their white album. As you can see, it's all white. Cover pa lang super badass na. Not to mention the like 20 plus songs I think on this double album talagang mind blowing for me. Uh, this is the parang 50th anniversary um, pressing. I have like two. Of course, all their albums are like essential. So meron akong box set ng Beatles, but this one for me, along with Abbey Road, is really uh, a magnum opus.
And you gotta hand it to them because I mean to release in when it was first released, just a simple white album, no band picture, no band name, even just a plain white sleeve. That was such a brave move in that sense. Nakakatawa yung mga reaction si Sir Rex. Maganda siguro mga kanta ng The Beatles. Oh,
Yeah,
siguro naman.
you should listen to them.
You should check them out.
Check them out.
But what a brave release that was because the Beatles were pioneers in so many ways, but then it's not just musically, but also in the way they released their albums, the way they packaged their albums, the way they did their acts. It's so funny when people were saying when they decided not to tour anymore,
Mhm.
like they said we're gonna give up touring, and a lot of the rock critics and the music industry insiders said, well, that's the death of your career. And right after that, they released Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Mhm.
Basically, the Beatles were proving everybody wrong, and that's
Yeah,
a great way to not just study if you really
right.
like good music. That's great music, but also the way they changed the industry.
That's true. I think for better or for worse, the Beatles parang sila yung template for every band out there that became successful and decided to be, artists and started experimenting. But I think sila pa lang talaga din ang who could really pull it off, who could have pulled it off so well. Even at their most experimental, they still did a bunch of good songs.
That's real genius, I think, when you come there. Even when they were experimenting with their songwriting, the instruments that they put in, the way they released their albums, they're still brilliant. So parang there were times where if you consider the whole Beatles catalog, and you can chart their progression as artists and as musicians and as people who are very savvy with the record industry, who
Mm-hmm.
basically said, "Fuck, we're gonna do what we want to do."
Mm-hmm.
Because when you reach that point, we're the Beatles. We can do whatever we want to do. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
they're still the gold standard. I
yeah.
think. Yeah, I hate them. I really hate them.
All right. Thank you for that, Eddie. That's the White Album. Derek, let's go to you.
My next one is an R&B album. It's Maxwell's debut album, Urban Hang Suite.
Yes.
I discovered this record when I was digging, well, CD pa noon, no? In near our school, there were CDs in University Mall, and I saw the cover. Sabi ko, uy, mukhang interesting. And when I played it, I listened to the track Something Something. It was really groovy and really struck with me. Tapos, when I listened to the different tracks, sabi ko, uy, mukhang pang chicks to ah. Kasi sobrang swabe. Um, uh, it's really sexy pag pinakinggan mo yung ibang tracks niya, tapos ang ganda ng voice. And then this album also led me to different neo soul artists like D'Angelo, Erica Badu, those types. Kaya pero this one to me is my favorite. All of his albums I got his albums from Embria, now and his different albums. So Maxwell.
That Maxwell album, I remember when it first came out, and all the rockers, or all the heavy rockers. I was hanging out that time with Razorback and all these guys, and we actually sat down to listen to the Maxwell album, and we all had the same reaction as you did. Uy, pang chicks to. So that album was singularly responsible for at least that generation in the time period, for all the making out that happened. Because once you put on that album, it was practically like, oh, sure ball na to. And that was the album, man. Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite. That was amazing. I can tell you, I can share stories with you, but let's not go there. All right, Pat, let's go to you.
Um, yeah, my next album is Give Up by the Postal
Mm.
Service. I actually didn't buy this. I found it in my crate and I was like, wow, holy shit, it's mine now. I did a DJ set at Auto in Poblacion. I got home and this was in my box. So I was like, okay, cool. I love this album. It's mine now. Um uh it's an album I listened to a lot in high school. In high school I was an emo. I'm a proud emo. Uh and I didn't like electronic music until I heard this. And this is actually the side project of um, Van Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie, which I was like a fact I found out later on. And they're also called the Postal Service because they didn't spend any time together in the studio. They would just
Wow.
email each other all of the songs and all the demos, and they would just send it to each other, and that's how this album was made. And I was like, oh, pwede pala yun. And then that's just how I from then on that's how I make music with my friends. Like it's like forget jamming. Let's just like send each other stuff like that. Wag na. Because like when you jam, ano nangyayari? You just end up hanging out. So mas okay na yung email na lang, patong-patong na lang. So yeah, this song also has a lot of memories for me. Sometimes I play it um when I have friends over and I still memorize the whole thing. So yeah, I love this album. And
Well,
I think
Pat,
it's
go.
meant
nagme-message na yata yung may-ari.
Nagko-comment na.
it's gotta buy it
Well,
for me. That's how they do it, right? That's how the collectors do it. Right? You
well,
gotta buy it for me.
that's actually funny because like before the pandemic, they were doing what how musicians are doing it now.
Yeah.
Email,
So
email, email. So yeah, it's possible.
mm-hmm.
I mean, why let? And you're right. If it's jamming, most of the time, hanging out will happen instead of actually writing a song. Kung email, wala kang choice. Eh. Ito track. Okay, attack. Di
Yeah.
ba?
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm gonna hunt down for that. All right, Eddie. Let's hear your sixth. Your sixth
Yeah,
album.
I recently watched this Netflix show called Turning Point. It's a documentary about the 9/11 attacks, and since it's a 20th anniversary na, but since that day, I figured it would be a good time to feature uh, the movement that parang sort of came about 9/11 at the turn of the century, where there was so much confusion and panic. But parang music, specifically rock music, came to the forefront again because of 9/11. And the New York scene at that time was parang to me the last hurrah of rock and roll and rock music. Kumbaga nagkaroon ng renaissance ang rock music which will never be duplicated again. Bands like The Strokes, White Stripes, The Vines, The Rapture, yung ganon. Uh, the uh, the band that I sort of kind of gravitated to was Interpol, and this
Mm.
is their first album, Turn on the Bright Lights. They've been compared uh, to, of course, Joy Division because of Paul Banks's singing and songwriting, but I think they're more than that. They write really good songs, and especially the lyrics are poetry to me. Not to mention the melodies are so good. I saw them finally last year, 2 years ago in Hong Kong, and yeah, they're still one of my favorite bands.
It's funny when you mentioned the 9/11 uh, sparking the renaissance of rock music, especially the New York scene, because New York basically there was a big push on how to get New York back on its feet. Because
Right.
after that attack, they were of course so many people were affected, and it had international repercussions. And I think that rock renaissance coming from 9/11 is just a testament on how resilient New Yorkers are, because you knock them down, they get right back up. And the amount of creativity, the amount of creativity that came um, when they were recovering from the 9/11 attacks, of not just expressing themselves in terms of music, but also to give hope to the entire world in general. Because, hey, if we can, kung kaya namin bumangon, kaya nyo rin eh. You know? I think that's such an important landmark right now. I've been watching the same documentaries, but then sometimes it just gets too much for me, so I have to like watch it in segments. But you're right, the renaissance of rock music after the 9/11 really, I don't think can be duplicated, because it was a direct reaction and a recovery, and I guess a resurrection from that awful thing that happened to them. So that's one way of marking, um, I guess, a recovery and a return to the fighting spirit of the New Yorkers, and in a bigger sense to the rest of the world, saying that we won't take this lying down. We're gonna get back up, and that's rock and roll, man. That's rock and roll. So I'm gonna check out that album, Ellie. All right, Derek, let's hear your sixth.
In the late 90s, early 20s, 2000s rather, I was craving for a new sound, a new genre, and I remember entering tama ba yun, Music One, one of the record stores here. Um, there was quite a number of merchandise showing different compilation, and this compilation, Cafe Del Mar,
Yes.
Oh,
is one of them. Is one of
Yeah.
them. Um, so I got intrigued by the different cover designs, the artwork, and I when I listened to the album, nasa sample pa dati, no, kasi CD pa dati, I was really blown away by the different parang soundscapes, because the compilation is different genres, in one, lounge music, ambient, merong jazz, and yun nga, I immediately like this album in particular, itong volume 6. So I searched and checked that yun nga ang nagko-compile pa na nito is a DJ from Spain, Ibiza, Spain, si Jose Padilla. So I backtracked, checked his other compilations, and yun, I really enjoyed the series. Unfortunately, DJ Jose Padilla passed away last year in October, due to
Oh,
colon cancer. So to me, this is again a favorite, because yung track niya na Adios Ayer is here, which when you really listen to it, it's really parang a perfect soundtrack to us, looking at and seeing the sunset in while you're in the beach, diba? Sipping your favorite drink. So yeah.
man, that's a classic, man. The Cafe Del Mars provided a lot of soundtracks, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, where the club culture was taking off, and then people wanted a direct response to, all right, we have techno, we have all this, But we can't really listen to that, as you said, while we're sipping a drink, watching the sunset. And Cafe Del Mar came out, and that was the perfect soundscape for that kind of atmosphere. So that's I have to get that. Okay. This is what's gonna drive me broke, man. Every time we do the show, I'm like making lists and purchasing. But really, I mean, who can live without music? We need music in our lives. All right, Pat, let's hear from you.
My next album is Heads Up by Warpaint.
Ooh.
So, Warpaint is one of my favorite bands ever. They uh, changed my life also. Because I like their music a lot, and they're also an all female band, but they're not cute, or they're not trying to be cute or whatever, and they're just like unapologetically themselves, kind of punk in a way. But they're an indie rock band. You can tell that they're influenced by a lot of new wave as well, but uh, the difference is that the melodies are not that dark, and they use a lot of like three-part harmonies and stuff like that, which
Mm.
makes their sound a bit unique. And sobrang idol ko din yung drummer nila. And her story, because the band is from LA, but she is from Australia, and they found her in like a bar in LA, and they asked her to come over and be part of their band, and then their band took off, and now they're like homies with like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff. I don't know. It's just trippy. I think when you get to know also the life story of the artists, and you kind of get attached to them also. So yeah, this is one of my favorite albums. It's a Heads Up by Warpaint.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's interesting when you get to know also the backstories of the artists behind the music. I'm a big fan of documentaries and biographies as well. And it's funny when you read biographies written about one specific member of the band versus a biography written about the band. It's quite interesting when you see all these multiple perspectives of how they got together. People, I guess, remember things differently, and it's quite interesting to see all the separate takes on how a band came to be. And I think when you go back, if you get to know the artists behind the music, and read their biographies, and basically listen to their interviews, it's quite interesting when you go back to listen to their music. It gives you a more informed, I guess, opinion, or a more informed listening ear, because it gives you stories of like, oh, so this is how this song was written, or oh, I thought a lot of thought had gone into the song. Yung pala, he did it when he was drunk, or when he did it when he was half asleep. So it's quite interesting to have those different perspectives when you listen to a track, when you get to know the artists. And I think that's a great story behind Warpaint. That's another album I'm going to be checking out. All right, Ellie, let's go to your seventh.
Right. This is kind of
Yeah.
blue by Miles Davis. Um, Growing up, I never really owned any jazz albums, much less listened to jazz. But maturing now, parang I can see the I can see why people like jazz, and learning about the culture and the history of music, American music in general. Uh, I really started appreciating jazz music and jazz musicians. Now, parang I own a lot of jazz albums, and I think jazz is best listened to talaga uh, on vinyl, on a turntable, on a hi-fi system. Parang there's something about the music that just goes so well with the warmth of vinyl. Yeah.
I think also like listening with like for example Miles Davis and other jazz albums, listening to it in the format that it's meant to be released in, that it was first released in, adds to the romantic quality of it. It's a certain mindset. It's like, when you listen to jazz, it's very different when you listen to it via streaming, or a streaming platform. But if you pull out the record, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how the artist meant to release it. When you pull out the record and you put the needle on, that entire parang ceremony already, or that ritual, puts you
Right.
already in the mindset for the music that comes out.
Mm.
I think jazz is slowly, like you said, Ellie, when we mature, or in other words, when we get older, right, we start appreciating these genres. Jazz used to give me such a big headache when I was younger. I'm like, basically, it's like, what the fuck is going on,
Same, same, yeah,
right? And then now, when you listen to it, and you're older, and you're slightly wiser, and you've gone through shit, you're like,
yeah.
I think I'm getting it. You know?
And this album is so good kasi ano, it's a one take performance album.
Yeah.
And it was all improvised, the performance. So yeah, this is a really good album.
All right, that's definitely on my list as well. All right, Derek, let's go to you.
During the same time frame when I discovered Cafe Del Mar, and I guess during the early 2000s, that's when me and my friends were heavily clubbing. And I realized now when you're at home, 'di ba, you can't listen naman to those clubbing tunes. So I wanted something that's more mellow. Cafe Del Mar was an alternative. The other was this compilation from Naked Music Recordings. It's a compilation called Bare Essentials. No, it's a deep house, electronic, of course, dancey album. And I like this kasi na-discover ko to through, I'm sure you're familiar with Head Candy, another record label with a lot of good dance tunes. Pero the one that I really like this no, aside from the music, they really make a lot of good covers, as you can see here.
Yeah.
Um, well, good designs,
Cover pa lang,
and
benta na yan. Ang ganda, oh.
oh, so yeah, this is one of my favorite genres na dancey, deep house. So I get to play it even while you're at home, and you don't need parang a crowd or that clubbing feel. Kahit mag-isa ka lang, swabing swabe.
Nice, nice, nice. That's another one that I'm gonna look for. All right, let's go to you, Pat.
This is Time to Die by the Dodos. They're a folk duo, acoustic guitar lang, and drums. So, ayun, natripan ko sila because I was like, oh, they're only two. That's cool. And then, sobrang nagustuhan ko yung songs nila kasi yung folk siya, kaso yung strumming ng guitar is like, he strums it pretty aggressively. And then it's complemented by the style of the drummer where he parang nag-aral siya ng music. Like
Mm,
he actually flew to Africa to study African
wow.
music. So it's kind of like it has a very tribal, you could say, feeling to the music. And it's very busy. But then it's still like you can still sing along to it, and uh, yeah, it's not totally weird. It's super cool. I like the music that they were able to create, the two of them only with their two individualistic styles put together. So yeah, this is one of my favorite albums, and I've spent many car rides listening to this album, "Time to Die" by the Dodos.
That's such an interesting way of mixing it, like African music with an acoustic guitar in a folk feel.
Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm so there.
Yeah.
I'm so there, right? Ayan, paki-post naman yung list ni Pat. That's what we should actually be doing after our vinyl nights. Posting, ito yung recommendations ng, di ba, ni Pat, ni Ellie. That would be great, man. Because, I mean, it'll help people, it'll help people discover new music. And that's the beauty of being the community that we are. All right. Thanks so much for that, Pat. All right, Ellie, let's go. We're on our, this is the eighth or ninth?
9.
Ninth. See,
Ninth,
thank you,
ninth.
Pat, because, this Robert Burns single malt whiskey. Whoo! You can't just have two glasses, pare. I'm on my fourth na. Sarap eh. All right, Ali, let's hear your ninth.
This is Dirty Mind by Prince. I think this is his third album. Pre Purple Rain, pre 80s. Pero I think this is the best of his works. Um, he was a parang bedroom artist at this point, just making records on his own. He was syempre, he was a multi-instrumentalist and
Yeah.
did everything here. So this is the unadulterated Prince album for me. Dirty Mind.
What's amazing with Prince is that when he started making records just for himself, when he finally, could build his studio at home, essentially he started recording. He had so much material so that when the label I would ask him for a new album, he would just go to his shelf and go here.
Oh
He
yeah,
was
yeah.
ready, and that's just
Ang dami niya
so.
pa, ang dami niya posthumous
Yeah.
posthumous releases recently na sobrang galing pa rin talaga.
Or sabi ni Day, she's been looking down for that Prince album. Let's go over to Ellie's house and you can nick his Prince album. I'll nick his Blade Runner when he's not looking. But yeah, I mean the artistry of Prince. I mean, not only was he so technically talented, and only later on did I realize that he was such a tremendous guitar player. Because you'd only take his songs as it was. I mean, I wasn't reading any biographies. There wasn't any YouTube yet. You know what I mean? So you'd only take his songs at face value, and that was really good enough for me. But when you started researching about him, you realize he's such a not only was he a multi instrumentalist, but he was such an artist that was not afraid to change who he was. I mean, I remember that weird time where we couldn't even call him Prince anymore. He was the Glyph. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And he would release art. He would release music under the Glyph. And I'm like, you know what? That is music that would be made by the Glyph. You know what I mean? So it's amazing. He was so brave. He was so courageous. And considering all the posthumous releases, and I hear there's a lot more pa that
Not
they're
much.
just going to be releasing slowly because that's all the guy did. He would just go to his basement at like Paisley Park and just create music. What a
Mhm.
life. That's amazing. All right, Derek, let's hear from you.
Um, yeah. Next album is from the Icelandic post-rock band Siguros. The album is Stack. It was released in 2005, I think. Um, since ever since I listened to the Cafe Del Mar, no, I kind of like a lot of ambient, ethereal, and this is an album that really grew on me. Kahit hindi ko maintindihan yung vocals because they were singing in Icelandic, na-enjoy ko talaga siya because of yung different soundscapes, layered yung mga kanta, um, really grandeur. So yeah, Siguros. Tak.
That's so interesting where I mean this is amazing when music can cross even language barriers. I was so resistant to that in the past because parang I can't understand what they're saying. I mean, as a singer, I need to understand what the hell you're singing about. And that was, my very narrow-minded way of listening to music. I essentially would listen to music only I could sing. If I couldn't sing it, I wouldn't listen to it, which was such a, it was just a narrow-minded way of listening to music until, you discover all these other bands and other musical groups. I remember in particular listening to a Japanese rock band called B apostrophe Z, and they were amazing. And that was, I think, I remember the first time that I didn't give a shit about what they were singing about because it just sounded so good, and that opened up my brain to actually listening to things in other languages, because if it speaks to you, even if it's not in your particular speaking language, but if the music will move you, that should be enough. And then later on, when you get the translation of the lyrics, okay, ito pala yung kanta na yun. That's what he was talking about pala. But if the music is strong enough to move you, I think that's an essential way of having a mindset of discovering new music, and I think that's great. And not to mention that, can you show me that the album cover again, Derek?
Mm.
It looks like a storybook.
Oh, yeah.
Diba? It looks like a storybook. It looks like a novel. Oh, how nice. How nice. That's what I love about vinyl. The artwork alone is
Yeah,
amazing.
that's true.
All right, Pat, let's go to you.
This is Beat Music by Mark Juliana. Mark Juliana is like one of my top three favorite drummers of all time in the world, and if not the top one, I would say. He's um, he's kind of a trailblazer in his own way. In this whole school of like reverse engineering, kind of like doing this reverse engineering thing where he plays electronic music without any like samples or any like electronic element to it, but playing it acoustically on the drum set and trying to find ways and tones within the drum set to make it sound like an electronic sampled kit. So
Wow.
he's like I've been following him for years. I'm kind of like a stalker. Like I'm on his Patreon, like everything, man. Like um so yeah, this is a solo album called Beat Music and it's at Yellow. I don't know if that's important to say. And it's just a really good album. I don't know. I'm a big fan. He's also the one I was talking about the last show na he played on the last David Bowie album. So yeah,
Yes.
he became very popular because of that. But he was already kind of like an OG in the New York jazz and underground electronic scene, I guess, in his own way. So yeah, Beat Music by Mark Juliana.
Fantastic. All right, and now we're going on our 10th and our last in our top 10 vinyl. Ellie, let's see your 10th.
Yeah, well, I love film and I love soundtracks. I've been collecting soundtracks on vinyl for a while now, and I think no self-respecting soundtrack collector would want to miss the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. Not just because it's it contains like kick-ass songs, especially from the Bee Gees, but it's also a time capsule. And I grew up in the '70s, and this was all the rage back then. And I so wanted to watch the movie, pero R-rated siya at that time, and the only way I could enjoy it was listening to the soundtrack. So it still holds up. I know some people still don't like disco, but get over it because it's an honest to goodness legit genre of music. And the only reason why a lot of people didn't like it was not because of the musicality or anything like that. It was because of homophobia, because disco was parang started in the in the gay clubs, and it was mostly black music, and people also hated disco for that out of racist reasons. I recently learned this actually when I saw the Bee Gees documentary, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart. So I'm gonna listen to this again because this is really a super duper great album.
That is such a kick-ass album. I had the same. I had my reaction to disco was different. I mean, I was an angry young man, so I was attracted to punk, rock, new wave, metal, and for me, disco was always my titos and titas or my older cousins. So when you're younger, you veer away naturally from what the older people are listening to. And then I had to eventually discover disco when we actually did Saturday Night Fever, the musical in Soler. And I had to, the one constant note that my director was telling me is like, Jamie, you have to embrace the disco. And this was recent. This was in the 2000s, in Soler. And I think it's 2000, what, 15? And I was playing the DJ in Saturday Night Fever. I was playing the DJ. So I was responsible for giving the music in the clubs that John Travolta or the character Tony Manero would be, dancing to. So I had to embrace it fully. And after that, once the bug bit me, man, you really appreciate, especially working with a live band, like we did with the musical with CJ Javier, who's our musical director. When I would sit in the band rehearsals, I realized just how difficult playing disco is. You have to pay so much attention because essentially this genre was created for the dance steps, right?
Right.
And you have to pay attention to the rhythm of it, the beats, the different inflections, because if you inflected something differently, even if you're in the beat, it would determine a different dance step. And I never knew that, of course, because I was so resistant to listening to disco. But I'm happy to say that particular soundtrack got me to embrace the disco, and I'm not ashamed of it. That's a fantastic soundtrack. I wish I had gotten a vinyl copy of that, because the guy who created Saturday Night Fever, the movie and the musicals, Robert Stigwood, he came for our opening night, and I was
Wow.
thinking, shit, yeah, with his friend, beautiful French wife, Pasha, and all that, and I was like, shit, man, sana I got a copy so I could sign it at least. If I can't have the BG sign it, at least I'll have him sign it, from the Robert Stigwood organization. So yeah,
Damn. Robert
that's a
Stigwood.
that's a fantastic soundtrack. All right, Derek, let's go to your 10th.
My my tenth
Yo,
is Apo Hiking Society. I think it's also entitled 10 Years Together. To me, this is just pure joy and entertaining album from start to finish na naman. Um, Na-enjoy ko kahit yung hindi singles nila. Sobrang daming magandang kanta. Just really a big favorite OPM album, Apo Hiking. Yep.
that's essential. That is definitely essential right there. All right, and Pat.
Yeah. So my last album is Tony Allen self-titled album. Tony Allen is known to be the drummer of Fela Kuti and one of the founders of Afrobeat music. To me, it's amazing because like a musical style like Afrobeat is very much centered around the rhythm of it, and um, it's unmistakable. Like you can't, like an Afrobeat rhythm is an Afrobeat rhythm, just like a bossa nova or reggae. Like you can't mix it for another. And uh, for Tony Allen to be kind of like the creator of this um Afrobeat rhythm, like that's just crazy to me because he basically created the whole genre. And to me, I love Afrobeat. I can't play it. It's hard. I mean, there's like Fela Kuti's concerts go on for hours, and one track can go on for 20 minutes, and
Wow.
they're just jamming the whole time, and it's so like outrageous, like when you watch their concerts, like everything is just bonga talaga, dude. Like the costumes, everything, the energy is over the top. They're sweaty as fuck, like you know what I mean. And it's just so infectious, and the groove is so locked in, and like the amount of focus that they have just to keep on the amount of physicality to keep on to me is grabe, grabe. So yeah, but this is one of Tony Allen's solo albums. It's still Afrobeat, but minus Fella, and this is just his own work, which is trippy also because he kind of does some like kind of like tries to do like this kind of neo soul thing that comes out in his way. Uh, so it's cute, I guess. Yeah, so it is a nice album I found. So yeah, I bought it. So yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, guys. I mean, just seeing and hearing about your top tens, each of you, I think, it gives me a better idea on why offshore music really works. Because you guys have your own corners of the soundscape, you have your own tastes, but then you are committed to a singular vision, and you bring with it your tastes. So it's no now I understand why your artists are your artists. That's why you chose your artists. You have all these different tastes, but they're all good, and I that goes hand in hand with how you guys are running offshore, and that's 5 years in, and 5 years down the road. I can't wait to see and hear what you guys are going to be releasing. We're going to go into the rundown right now, where I'm going to ask you two quick questions. All right, just two, but they're hard questions. All right, or easy depending. We're going to start with Ellie. Ellie, what would be your holy grail record? Yung almost impossible dream record that you want to get your hands on.
Uh, well, that is hard. Well, right now, parang it's not that impossible. It's just a matter of ordering it on Amazon. uh, I've been wanting to get Speaking in Tongues by Talking Heads, and
Mm.
I still haven't gotten around to doing that. But yeah, that's practically what I would buy next year.
Oh, so anybody want to send Ellie a gift that's Speaking in Tongues by Talking Heads? He'll appreciate it. Derek, what about you?
Mine is it's the Cure's Wish. It's available, pero it's very expensive. Hindi pa siya nare-reissue. So I'm hoping it would be reissued soon. But Wish is because I think, well, nandun yung Friday I'm in Love, but I also like, but I also like the different tracks there. So yeah, that's my top of my head. It's my grail.
Nice, nice. And what about you, Pat?
Yeah, mine. Then I don't think it's so hard to find, but actually I haven't found it here yet in the Philippines. Would be On the Corner by Miles Davis.
Mm.
Yung medyo parang psychedelic
Funky.
record, yeah.
Mm.
When he got
Oo.
weird and lost all his jazz fans.
See, that's an album worth getting, because as an artist, when you get that experimental, you lose all your jazz fans. That means you're being brave, man. You know. Okay, next question. What record or album in your collection would you never part with? As in, they'll have to pry it out of your cold dead hands. Eddie, what would be yours?
Siguro this one na I wanted to put in the top 10, but this one because it's signed by Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith. I had
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Hurting by Tears for Fears. I had this signed when Pupil fronted for Tears for Fears at Araneta. So yeah, this is a prized possession for me.
and that's a fantastic album. Actually,
Yeah.
when I actually discovered, I'd been listening to this album for years, The Hurting, and then I read somewhere that their basis for this was the book The Primal Scream. So I
Oh,
read, which is it's a psychoanalyst's book, and then when I read the book, I'm like, what the fuck? I'd rather listen to the album because the book was really heavy
yeah.
and it
The
was
heaviest
amazing.
record, yeah.
Yeah, and when you go back, I mean, after reading the Primal Scream, I had to get through the Primal Scream. It's a very thick book, and I had to go back to the album. It actually gave me more insights on what they were actually writing about. So it's
Mm-hmm.
actually, one of their heaviest, most emotional albums. But it's so funny because it was set in the 80s musicality. Yung taka taka tang, taka taka, I mean all these weird instrumentation. So the the counter it was sort of like the juxtaposition between the instrumentation and the heavy shit that they were writing about, which I think what makes it a brilliant album. And since you have a signed copy, say, don't let go of that, man. Don't I promise not to shoplift when I get to your house. Derek, what about you?
This I'll show this. It's Art Blakey's Monin. Uh, it's also, I think, the self-titled. No, it's not the first press, but an early press. This album kasi parang para tayo, if you kanina I heard you na hindi ako kasi I didn't enjoy jazz when I was younger, pero I noticed as yun nga as I got older and then I got to listen to jazz on vinyl. Dun ko siya na-enjoy. And this one was the album that made me say, uy, gusto kong i-explore tong genre na to kasi hindi lang pala bebop, jazz yon or smooth jazz. May iba-ibang subgenres din yung jazz like spiritual jazz, modal, pero ito kasi because of the track moment na sobrang na-enjoy ko and I had to explore the Blue Note catalog na kung saan maraming albums na maganda sa jazz. So, yeah, this one.
Nice. Nice. All right. And Pat, what
Yeah,
would
you've seen this already, but it would be the Kamasi Washington record,
yeah.
the Epic, which was also signed by Kamasi Washington. So yeah, I don't know, man. I will never ever let this go, or will never sell it ever. Yeah.
You will never bring it with you on a DJ gig and leave it in somebody else's crate.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Yeah.
All right. Okay. So for our last call, one last question for you guys. If as avid vinyl collectors, what advice would you give to anyone who just started actively collecting vinyl today? Ellie, let's start with you. Did Ellie freeze? Yeah, I think he's
Nakahang.
frozen.
Nakahang
Oh.
siya.
Derek, let's start na lang with you. If you could give any advice to anybody who's collecting vinyl today, what would it be?
I guess research first so that you get to know what you want, what pressings would sound the best. When I started collecting, I was just grabbing, the different albums that I wanted. Pero there's some aspect pala to vinyl collecting that you need to know, such as where it's pressed, um, uh, sino yung, sometimes you go deeper and understand who was the engineer. Kasi you want to have that, a complete experience. Eh. And because vinyl could provide that, you have to research and find out what would be the best copy. Sometimes collectors will look at the cover. For as long as the cover is sturdy, the printing is good, it's good enough, no. But for me, it's the sound is more important. Of course, the albums or the music that you like is the most important one. Pero to me, the sound would be next, and you need to research and ask people who are in the know on what would be the best copy para hindi sayang yung yung budget mo to get a copy, yun pala it's not actually the one that could give you the ultimate experience.
Nice, good. So do your research and ask the people in the know, and that's always a good thing because the vinyl community is so generous with their time and their expertise and their wisdom. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask. Pat, what about you? If you could give any advice to anybody collecting vinyl now, what would that be?
Uh, don't be shy. I know it's intimidating because I think a lot of people want to get into vinyl, but they're like, huh, like that's not for me. Parang nakakatakot like to start collecting vinyl because there's this notion nga na, it's kind of like there's a technical aspect to it,
Yeah,
and kind of like it's kind of like when you first try gourmet food and then you can't go back like that. Like it parang your taste just wala, that you already tasted that thing, so it can't get worse, right? So there's kind of a, not naman like a stereotype, but um I don't know. Like, yeah, don't be scared to try, and just buy the stuff that you like. Like, don't give in to like peer pressure. Like, honestly, I don't own any Beatles albums. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like I need Revolver. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, but I do know the songs on Revolver, but I don't own Revolver. I don't need to own it. Maybe I don't need to own it yet. But yeah. So yun lang. I mean, vinyl collecting is collecting, but I think just buy what you want to buy because at the end of the day, that's what you listen to. I mean, yun lang. Ikaw lang naman makakarinig nun eh. Diba? For
true.
the most part.
Th- That's great advice. What about you, Ellie? What would you tell anybody? Any advice that you would give to anybody collecting vinyl now?
Um, Ewan ko, depende siguro kung anong gusto na nang mangyari. If you just wanna like get your parang feet in the water, foot in the water, just start small. I mean, uh, hindi naman ganun ka-expensive yung mga starter kits. Like, yung mga, they sound like crap, yung mga portable turntables, which are, I think, the most parang affordable turntables right now. Pero you have to start somewhere. But definitely, the vinyl itself, yeah, pag-isipan mo yun kasi hindi rin siya mura. They're expensive. And uh, lifelong na yun na ano, magiging possession mo. So, you can't be expected to buy two copies of one vinyl title. Although I do have some of those, like Thriller, I have two copies of Thriller. Uh, but yeah, I mean, just go for it. Feeling ko naman, if you really wanted to do it, you'd already do it. So start small muna. I mean, such a huge undertaking. Uh, Buying, those hi-fi systems and daming technical stuff like what Fat said. Yeah, it's a rabbit hole uh, going down there. So yeah, start small and just enjoy it.
Great. Thank you, Ellie. So start small, do your research, but at the end of the day, you're going to buy what you love listening to. So don't be afraid to, reach out to the vinyl community. They're a wonderful community. They will point you in many different directions. But it really, at the end of the day, it's what you can afford and what do you want to listen to. And that's about as personal as a collection that you can get because it's not just creating playlists on your Spotify. It's about actually going out there and investing in a physical copy of a record that was labored upon by so many people, not just the artists, but so many people. And I think it would be a great investment, not only financially because there are records there that are selling for thousands and thousands of pesos. But I think it's an investment for your soul where you actually will listen to the music that you love in a format that's best suited for it. And yeah, like Ellie said, it's a rabbit hole, but it's a glorious rabbit hole that is so much fun, and it gives you so much pleasure, right? So guys, thank you
Yes.
so much for taking the time to be on our vinyl night. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Derek. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll say good night now. Thank you very much. This is the Offshore Music Gang. So thank you guys, and please stay safe. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
thank you for giving
Thank
us the
you.
time tonight. All right, man. That was amazing. I mean, you see why this record label works, because basically, the people that are behind the record label, who are curating the artists and the music that they release, they themselves listen to different corners of the soundscape of the musical universe. And I think that's the most amazing thing, because I think with the reactions that we have on from our comments alone, of people asking for the lists of what music they listen to, it's just that journey of discovering music. If you love an artist, listen to what they listen to, and then go back and listen to what other guys listen to, and so on and so forth. So really discovering music in all its multiple genres and permutations and versions, artists, different pressings, um, and different formats even. uh, what matters most, I think, is you go by your own personal tastes, but you also allow your personal tastes to grow. And I think that's the journey of every, not only artist and musician, but also a music fan, which we all are. Because simply put, life won't be worth living without music. And on that note, we're going to say goodnight. But just before we do that, just a few announcements from Offshore Music. And Amori just released her single, Oh Bleeding Hearts, and it's available on all streaming platforms. She will also be releasing a lyric video on Friday. So stay tuned to her YouTube channel for the premiere. We're also going to be shooting a few music videos for her, and in preparation for the release of her full length album. So please do check her out on all your music streaming platforms, and watch out for the release of that lyric video. Also, Anak ng Bayan by Sulo and Alive at Wildgrass by Extrapolation are still out there, and they're still kicking ass. So please check them out on all streaming platforms as well, only from Offshore Music. We'd like to thank our friends from Buenos Dias Panaderia and the Misty Mountain Cafe. Premium blend coffee with Milo buns. Really, you can't go wrong, guys. You cannot go wrong. So thank you so much for always supporting our show. And from our friends from Liquor.Ph. Bourbon Heritage Month is in full swing at Liquor.Ph. Get great discounts up to 30% off on different well known American liquor brands, such as the Elijah Craig Straight Bourbon, Tito's Handmade Vodka, and the cult like whiskey in Mellow Corn. Get it before time runs out, and don't be fooled by other websites, guys. Liquor.Ph is the exclusive distributor of these babies. So, that wraps up our show for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in to On the Rocks. I'm Jamie Wilson. And I'm reminding you guys to please stay safe, stay strong, and stay sane. Keep on rocking and keep on rolling. And if all else fails, just let the music keep you going. And if you find that life has gotten you shaken up or stirred, mixed up or locked down or on the rocks, what matters most is that you take your shot. Thank you very much, and good night. Cheers. On the Rocks with Jamie Wilson is brought to you by Offshore Music. Go where the sound takes you.